it's recording.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Thank you for, as I said last time, inviting me for this series of classes. I had mentioned last time that this series is designed primarily for a non-Muslim audience, but I also understood from the subject that the event had not been advertised to the greater community for some specific reasons. And since the majority of our attendees last time and tonight are Muslims, what I thought I'd do, with your permission, please come in, is change the emphasis of what I present slightly in order to allow perhaps a more relevant conversation. What I'm going to do with a slight change, and I spoke to Sheikh Mendes on Friday morning as he was walking in. I'm going to interrupt to say salam to him. So as I was saying, that I'll change the format a bit and really look at some issues that spring off of what we talked about last time, which was really a focus on Sharia and how Muslims traditionally understood Sharia, how we understand Sharia today, and what are some of the challenges. And I think some root ideas in the Sharia tradition might be in order, given that we are a Muslim majority or Muslim only audience. And this is going to be interactive, so I'd really like you to participate, inshallah. Yes.
Just keep in mind, we have people who are brand spanking new Muslims.
Absolutely, yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem at all. If you are brand spanking Muslim like I am, just self-identify. Okay, so we talked about Sharia a lot last time, and I think certain things that are rooted in Sharia are important for us to understand. And so one of the things I want to do today is really look at some what I call tools in the Islamic jurisprudence toolbox, or in the Sharia tradition, right? Jurisprudence, the appropriate word in the Arabic terminology would be usul al-fiqh. I see some additional brothers and sisters are walking in, so please come in and join us. Here's a familiar friend. MashaAllah, Brother Walid. How are you?
Good memory.
Good memory, how could I forget? MashaAllah, and I see another face that I recognize. Assalamu alaikum. Please come and join us. So just to give context to some new faces, and I think I'm in the company of one Brother Walid who's probably very familiar because he has apparently taught a course in Islamic jurisprudence using a text that I love to teach from Islam, the commandment text. So today I'm going to, again, go off of the Sharia set of conversations we had last time and look at some of these tools in the Islamic jurisprudence toolbox, right? I mean, that's the terminology I use. But to help us sort of get grounded in how rich, how flexible the Sharia tradition is. Because the public perception of Sharia is what? It's monolithic, right? It's all about finance, right? In other words, Sharia is essentialized and reduced and conflated to what you might and I might call the penal code of the Sharia tradition, right? The criminal punishment part of the Sharia tradition. And I always like to compare the size, relative size of the penal code or the criminal code of the Sharia tradition to the larger Sharia tradition. So that panel right there, right, if that panel were Sharia, the penal code would be the dot of my finger on that panel in terms of relative size. Right? So I think that's important to recognize. Another thing we attempted to do last time was to ask, how does Sharia compared to another constitutional or legal system, maybe the American constitutional system or the British Commonwealth system. And of course, we recognize that the Sharia tradition is vast, and any other legal tradition is necessarily narrowed in scope. Right? So if you look at the American constitutional tradition and everything legal that comes out of it, is in its scope anything to do with religion, other than the clause that talks about the right to practice religion in freedom, there is no other details. Whereas in the Sharia tradition, remember the two broad categories we talked about last time? Aqidah, Ibadat and Mu'amalat. Right? Ibadat being the relationship that Sharia governs between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Mu'amalat are the relationships that it governs between you and the rest of community, society, the rocks and the planets and the earth and the trees and everything else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the two broad categories. Well, what in the US constitutional system talks about your relationship with God other than that one clause? Nothing else. What was in Roman legal tradition anything that dealt with God? Pretty much nothing. Right? So the scope of Sharia is very different. Right? And its source text, most importantly, is vastly different. Its source text is extraterrestrial. Would I be okay to use that term? It's ET, right? It is not of this planet. It is not of human making. That is its source text. However, its commandments are entirely what? Terrestrial. In other words, it is constructed by human effort of people like Sheikh Mendes. Right? It is scholars who engage the source text as extraterrestrial to create. So I want to talk about some of these ideas and help us get grounded in it. And again, this is unique because rarely when I do this do I have a Muslim-only audience. So we can really get into the meat, or if you're vegan, into the vegetables. What's the matter? Right? And we should get as much as vegan as possible, right? Okay, so we'll talk about reason in Islamic jurisprudence. We'll talk about this concept of immutability versus tawqifi versus mu'allal, or rationale-based. I'll define these things. We'll talk about Quran and Hadith canonization. It's important to recognize that, because then you can truly accept the diversity that exists in Muslim juristic thought. Otherwise, it's very hard to accept that. I had one sister who is not here tonight. I believe, let me see if I have a sister. No. So she's not here tonight, but she spoke to me last time, and she was concerned about, I made a comment about the need to learn the Muslim tradition from those who have learned, from those who have learned, from those who have learned, from those who have learned back to the Prophet ﷺ, to have a legacy and a pedigree back to the Prophet ﷺ. Right? It's important that we recognize that Islam has been understood, the source text has been understood and interpreted and analyzed in a very consistent manner from generation to generation, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ to now. And one way Muslim communities have maintained that connection and legacy is to connect back through the legacy of the Prophet. So when a young child learns the Quran in most Muslim seminaries, he or she is taught not just the Quran, but the names of the teachers going back to the Prophet. Right? This is part of the tradition. If a scholar learns, he's added to the isnad, or the chain of narrations from the Prophet ﷺ in hadith methodology. You learn the names of all the scholars who came before you until the scholar who's teaching you. And then your name gets added to that list. So it's a living, right, connection. The Prophet ﷺ is alive. What does that mean? I won't get into the theology of that statement, but I will get into the sort of the intent of that statement. The intent of the statement is that his life is a living example for us. Through the memories of our scholars, which keeps getting renewed in each generation. And that's very important. All right? So the Quran and Hadith canonization is an important idea. And then further, the source text will talk about that, and then this definition about how we understand meanings of texts. We'll talk about that in these two terms, qat'i and dhanni. And there's at least two people in the audience who know it, and there might be more, inshallah. Okay, so let's talk about the place of reason in Islamic jurisprudence. So, one of my favorite scholars, whose name is Umar Farooq Abdullah, he's, in my eyes, one of the awliya living today, particularly in the United States. He is originally out of Chicago, became Muslim in the early 70s in Philadelphia, for places. And he's an amazing scholar. And he's written a number of things, and I've studied with him virtually through his texts and his writing. So he writes in this statement, it's a quote from one of his papers. The protection, preservation, and cultivation of the power to reason count among the major objectives and greatest societal obligations within Islam. Islam is about this, and it's about this, right? But when it comes to Islamic jurisprudence, when it comes to understanding text, the Quran and the Sunnah, it's all about how your brain analyzes and understands the text. Abandon the brain in the process, and nothing comes out. Now, is that an extraordinary statement I'm making? Does that make sense? Am I saying something that's obvious? Is it obvious, what I just said? That without the brain, you cannot understand the text. Nobody has an objection to that statement. Okay, well, we'll get to a point where I'll ask you to try and object to that statement. But all of you are comfortable saying, hey, I mean, if I can't use my mind to understand the text, then I have no other recourse, right? I'm stuck. Okay, that's good. Taklif, which is another term that denotes responsibility, particularly moral responsibility. That cannot be imposed, and the Sharia tradition does not impose moral responsibility on an individual until, moral responsibility is not imposed without comprehension of what it is that you'll be asked to follow. So you cannot be held responsible until you have comprehended what it is that you're responsible for. That's why a child who has not developed into mental capacity to be able to understand is held unaccountable in front of God and in front of society. Or a person who is mentally deprecated, and that definition itself has evolved within Muslim society, right? Given the nature of our scientific understanding of how our brains work. In the past, I think a severely autistic child or a person would have been called having no taklif, moral responsibility. That, given modern understanding of autism and the spectrum of autism, has changed, right? So it's an important thing to recognize that part of Islamic jurisprudence reevaluates positions our ulama have taken historically, given new data. Right? Given new data. And that was a very commonly understood thing in Muslim societies. However, in the 20th century, particularly the second half of the 20th century, with the rise of, I'm going to use certain terms, and if you have objections, let us have the respect of dialogue to disagree. I invite your disagreement, okay? But I think one of the challenges that has arisen in the second half of the 20th century, for a number of socio-political reasons, is the rise of a certain strain of Salafism and a certain strain, and its most sort of very obvious form, Wahhabism, okay? And I will help to define partially what these are. That has sort of taken an axe towards this idea that Islam and the Muslim Sunni or Shia, classical Sunni or Shia tradition is a rational-based and based on aql, okay, and the use and the exercise of aql or the mind as a primary source of understanding and engaging with the source text. Okay, so in the absence of your ability to reason and understand and dialogue and converse and ask and get a response and understand, there is no taklif. There's no moral responsibility. If you don't have that capacity, then Allah will not hold you responsible. And for our lives on earth, our legal system cannot hold you responsible. Now, what is the implication of that for us as a community in Princeton, at Princeton Junction, in this masjid? Any implications of that? Any leadership implications? Any communal implications? This is an open-ended question that I want engagement. If you don't answer, I'll pick on you. That's what I do. All right, so go ahead, it's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. I get to drink tea now. Any implications of this idea that one must have a clarity of understanding of this tradition? Who was on the interview committee interviewing Imam Sheikh Mendes when he first hired on? Anybody in this audience except Brother Side? I'm not going to ask you what you asked him, and I'm not going to ask him to answer those questions. But I'm assuming you asked him some questions.
I can ask him and beg him.
I know why you begged him. He has a wonderful heart. But he also has a trained mind, right? And I don't think you would have begged him if you didn't know that. So there
If
is...
you can clarify your question a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, what are you exactly trying to get to?
I'm leaving it open-ended, but I'm happy to focus now. Look, when we make our decisions regarding Islam, do we do it on the basis of sound knowledge, or do we do it on the basis of perceptions and impressions about what Islam says? Are you sure of what you're asking? And if you're not, that's okay, you can ask and clarify. But when you make decisions, are you sure of your position when you make a decision? Right? That is part of taklif, that's part of moral responsibility, to be certain of what it is that you want, right? And what it is that you're asking for. And if you cannot engage with the source text, either through the mediation of your own knowledge, or through the mediation of a Sheikh Mendes or someone else, then we're playing with fire.
If I may submit, last night I was at a fundraising gala
Yeah.
for Nur Iman Islamic School.
Yeah.
Very well known Islamic school in the
Mashallah.
region.
Yes.
And Dr. Dalia Fahdi gave the keynote speech.
Yes.
And she quoted her brother,
Yes.
Sheikh Yasser
Yes.
Fahdi,
Yes.
as saying that one of the things that we need to regain
Yes.
as a Muslim community worldwide
Yes.
is the centrality, and I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
of ethics,
Yes.
logic,
Mm.
and critical thinking,
Yeah.
which is at the core of our educational system.
Absolutely. MashaAllah. Well said. Yeah, the logic, this is part of what I'm asking. And what was the third one?
Ethics, logic, and critical thinking.
Critical thinking. The critical thinking part allows you to ask a question and pursue its answer. And by pursue, I mean not take a sloppy answer and be satisfied with it. If you're not satisfied with an answer, it's either because you don't have enough training to actually appreciate the answer, or you have enough training and you're not satisfied with the answer, in which case don't stop, press on, and ask that question. Our Sunni tradition and our Shia tradition, both, the scholars, Abu Hanifa used to do this. He would have the students sit, right, in preparation for questions from the community that they might ask. They would formulate, one student would formulate a question, the other student would answer it, and they would debate back and forth until they formulated a reasonable answer. And then that's when they felt they were prepared to receive a question from the audience. Okay, some in the Sunni tradition said, well, that's not good. Like Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal wasn't very comfortable with that put. The Hanafi tradition and the Maliki tradition very comfortable with asking these questions and formulating potential answers. But that's part of the ability to understand something in a rigorous way. Okay, so that you have societal, communal, and civilizational confidence, right? We have confidence as a community that we know what we're talking about. Otherwise, we lack confidence. You know, somebody throws this thing, oh, Islam is a terrorist organization, and half of us have a meltdown. Why? Why? Because we haven't gotten the capacity, acquired the capacity, to be able to say absolutely no. That's nonsense. That's BS. That's whatever it is, right? But we don't have that individual, communal, societal, civilizational capacity. Not in the right amounts. There are plenty of people who are capable, but we need more. So I think reorienting ourselves to understand the rigor of our juristic tradition, of our tradition of learning is very important as a Muslim community. And I'm so pleased that I have the opportunity to talk to you about this because this course wasn't designed for this thing, but we're flipping it, right? So I'm really grateful. Allah says, in this way Allah makes His signs clear for you that perhaps you may reason. And the Quran is full of these verses. I picked a couple. This is in Baqarah. Allah will put a loathsome chastisement upon those who do not use their reason. So when we fail to use our reason, there is a punishment that ensues. It might be a societal punishment that ensues upon the community because we fail to use our reason in a reasonable manner. How many of you know Khalid ibn al-Fadl here? He's one of my teachers. Again, virtually. He says some amazing things in terms of our modern societies and our modern problems, right? And one of the things he remarks about is that ultimately the quality of a scholar, Sheikh Mendes is under spotlight now. The quality of a scholar is ultimately judged by who? The consumers of his scholarship. And in this community, it's all of you besides him. You are the consumers of his scholarship. But if you are not vigilant enough, he could take you for a ride. He wouldn't, I testify to that. In front of Allah, I testify, he would take you to the right path. But your vigilance is a necessary prerequisite to aid him in that. And if you can't call him out and ask him and challenge him, then the formula doesn't work. And you know, the first time I read that, I said, you know, because the legitimacy of a scholar in the historical tradition, where did the legitimacy of a scholar come in from? How do you know a scholar is really a scholar? How do you know this? This is an important dialogue. Okay, it's part of your moral, it's part of your taklif, to figure out, yeah, this scholar is okay, this scholar is still right. How do you go about doing this assessment? By asking questions, okay. Anything else?
I think the maybe some scholars who you have confidence in, and they may give an opinion about that scholar.
Okay, yes. So if you've already gone through that process. But here's yes, I think you have done something, a remarkably secure and safe thing. You have gone to a scholar that you have confidence in to get an opinion. But let's say you didn't have access. If you had to do that assessment, what would you do?
Source of the scholarship.
Huh?
Source of the scholarship.
Source of scholarship. Jazakallah khair. So I'm sure the interview committee grilled him. Where did you learn? Who did you learn from? Who? Oh, that person? Okay, I know that person. I have no idea who this person is. Okay? So you have to go through that process. Right? What if you had the wherewithal to be able to ask a technical question? Would you do that? Right? when you have that capacity, guess what happens? Along with that capacity that's given by Allah comes what? An obligation. That is, if you have that capacity and you have either acquired it, through osmosis, through study, through whatever, exposure, and you fail to use it, that is not a sin, right? So our responsibility to each other is, the Muslim is the mirror of his brother, right? Part of the mirroring is this taklif, this moral responsibility to each other, to excel by being rigorous about our understanding of Islam. Extremely rigorous. And this is not a fight. Do my words sound like fighting words? No, it's not a fight. No, it's being rigorous. And here's the truth about communities and leaders and followers. Sometimes followers don't play their role. Sometimes leaders don't play their role. The rigor of their roles. Right? Leaders need to lead and they need to listen. Followers need to follow, but they need to challenge and ask and assess and make sure that the leaders are staying on the narrow and the truth. Right? This engagement requires understanding of these sources. Hence the conversation. Okay. Now, I want to end this particular idea with Raghib al-Isfahani, who is a scholar of Persian descent, but an Arab, obviously, because of his language and his mastery of the language. He said this in red: never be satisfied with a person's Islam until you have tested his reason, or his capacity to reason. This is one of our famous scholars. Think about that for a moment. Think about leaders and followers you've interacted with who will make irrational statements or statements that don't sit well with you, and you will let it go unchallenged. You will not say, brother, sister, can I ask you, what do you mean by that? Not in a negative or attacking way, but in a rigorous way. May I ask how much money was spent to build this building? Is that a public knowledge?
9.7.
Okay. Do you know how much responsibility every one of you has to make sure that that 9.7 is used and the ROI on it is as high as possible? The return on that investment is as high as possible. You have to answer for a lot of this. You step into this building, you think you're part of this community, tag, you're it, you're responsible. You're responsible. You may think you're not, but you are responsible. That's this thing about the reflection of, being a brother and sister to each other. It's a responsibility, and sometimes we don't take that responsibility in a serious way. And I think it primarily rests not on lack of intention or the absence of intentionality, but it is because we don't understand our taklif, our moral responsibilities in a clear way. And I think we have sort of different understandings of what moral responsibility actually entails. And I'm hoping some of these ideas will put us sort of on the same page, because it's important to be on the same page, because if you agree to have a frame of reference that's common, then it's a lot easier to navigate. Okay, so Islamic legal thought. And in fact, it's not just Islamic legal thought, all Islamic thinking broadly, right? Takes all of the rulings in the Quran and the Sunnah and divides it into two broad categories. Okay? There are multiple ways of looking at it. This is one way, and it goes to the nature of how you arrive at an understanding of a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So, two broad categories with respect to this idea about reason. Okay. Some of you are reading, so I'll give you a chance to sort of read that and sort of absorb it, and then let's sort of deal with it. I'll begin with a couple of questions. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to begin salah with Allahu Akbar, and then do qiyam first, ruku second, and sajda last? Why did he order salah in that order? What is the answer to that question? What's that?
Allah's best.
That is the best answer.
She said Allah knows best.
Yes, that is the best answer. Now, but I'm asking you, the question I'm asking you is, Allah always knows best. But the question I'm asking you is there a rational reason one can articulate to explain why it is in this order and not some other order? So what we are trying to do here is ask a question about why is it like this? Look, all of your kids who grew up here, they've asked you similar questions. Mama, why is it like this? Baba, why is it like this? Abu, I don't understand this. Explain it to me. And Abu's going, oh my God, I need Sheikh Mendes here right now. And I need him to spend the next whole weekend here. So he can answer all the questions. Well, no, he's not available. He's busy with his kids on the weekends. Or some other time.
Now, I would say, in answer to that question,
Yes.
just from my own personal
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
You know, maybe 20 years ago, 50 years ago, I would say that's a Tawqifi
Yes.
ruling.
Yes.
But with, study and
Mhm.
reflection and.
You can come up with,
The why we start with Qiyam and say Allah Akbar. I don't know if I use the word rational, but the
Yeah.
wisdoms.
yeah.
The
It's the same
wisdoms,
thing, yeah.
the reasons that have been shown to me, I think, are very clear anthropologically,
Yeah.
metaphysically,
Yeah.
even.
Spiritually, physically,
Yeah,
in all these categories, they make sense.
they make perfect sense.
So what you just saw, okay, is an interaction of how a scholar talks to a student. He's the scholar and the student. And what he's doing, he's I'm going to use this term, don't mind this. He's baiting me to teach you. He just baited me to teach you. What did he do? What he said was that some ibadat, most of our Sunni scholars take all of our ibadat and say they're tawqifi. That is, you can't figure out why it is in this order. But what Sheikh Mendes just taught us is that in the Sunni tradition, we take what is unknown and we still think about it. As long as we cannot come up with a satisfactory answer, and I'll define what satisfactory means, we term it tawqifi. There is no rationale. I don't know. And you say at best, Allah knows best. But your mind keeps thinking, and you keep begging Allah to show you what is the hikmah, what is the benefit, why this order. And that is why Imam Ghazali can sit and write volumes about Salah alone. Why all of these ulama can write volumes and volumes. Why? Because they are getting these insights, these veils that are being lifted by Allah because of their devotion, to see the benefits in what Allah has prescribed. To the point that our ulama say that all of the ahkam of Allah are mu'allal. And they have an ilm. They have a rationale, but we can't perceive it. Right? We can't perceive it. So when we can't perceive it, we call it tawqifi. I don't know what it is, I leave it alone. But the minute I can figure it out, it has an ilm, it has an effective cause. There is a reason for it. And the scholars will talk about two aspects of rationale. The purpose of the ibadah or the command, and its form. Two things, form and function. How many of you are architects or engineers or scientists here? You have form and function in anything that you do, right? So when we talk about an illah or a rationale, you talk about the rationale or the cause or the reasoning for its form and also for its end game or its purpose. Right? All of the ibadat have a single purpose. What? To know Allah, to get close to Allah. So that's an easy answer. But the forms are more difficult. Right? The forms are more difficult. There is an ayah in which Allah identifies himself as Rabbul Mashriqayn wa Maghribayn. The Lord of the two east and the two west. Somebody explain that. What? Where are the two east and where are the two wests? Where are they? Sister.
I mean, I heard
Yes.
You might refer to the fact that, because of the rotation of the travel of the Earth around the sun, that the sun comes up in different parts of the east, or, and sets in different parts of the west. So there's the furthest east and the furthest west. That's what I heard.
Right. Yeah, the angle that the Earth tilts towards the sun allows winter west and west and east to be here, but summer west and east to be here. And there's this angle. That angle corresponds to the angle of the tilt of the Earth to the sun, right? Who discovered this? A scholar, I always forget his name, a scholar who was an astronomer as well. A Muslim scholar who was an astronomer, and what he said was, this is what probably Allah means by mashriqayn wa maghribayn. Promptly to be refuted by another scholar who says, but between these 2 points are so many infinite. Right? So you see a scholar comes up with a reasoning, and another scholar refutes him in the most elegant manner, saying, yeah, it may be that's what Allah means, but it could also mean something else. And that is the power of Muslim civilization, that it's escaping us today, that we don't have that capacity to be able to take the value of an intellectual position one scholar gives and compare it and value equally for its benefit to somebody else who completely disagrees with that other scholar. Right? This was the power of the confidence Muslim civilization had when we were rooted in this type of intellectual rigor. Right? Because ultimately Allah is the knower and the keeper of all things that are hidden to us, and we must scratch the surface. And so who am I to be so arrogant as to say that what I discovered is ultimate truth? It's not. It's a veil that has been lifted. There's 1,000 other veils, 1,001 veils to be lifted, right? So I think this is part of why the ulama define these two sort of categories. Tawqifi, if you cannot figure out either because of its form or its function, and if you can figure out one or both, then it is mu'allal, or it has an illah. Illah, it means an effective cause, either for its purpose or for its form. You can apply this to any of the questions. Ramadan, why is it in the 9th month? Can anybody tell me? Why is it the 9th month, not the 11th? And Ramadan is not one of the Muharram months, right? It's not one of the 4 sacred months, right? But Ramadan is very important. But why is it the 9th month that we are asked to fast? What's the reason? Yes. That is as close to rationality. But why did Allah, a young man, your son or your daughter is going to ask you, why did Allah reveal in the 9th month and not in Dhul Hijjah? Dhul Hijjah or Muharram, because it's the first month. Why did Allah choose Ramadan? A kid will ask you this. What will you answer? Allahu A'lam. Because we don't know why Allah chose Ramadan. And it's tawqifi. I don't know. But let me ask you another question, which we should be able to figure out if you don't already know the answer. Why did Allah tell us to follow the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar? What's the benefit? Is there a purpose behind it? What's the answer for that? Any geographers here? I'm not going to answer this one. It's got to have to be you answering that question. Use and limits. Undecided. You can pass it. You can pass it to anyone you wish. Oh no, except the shape. Yes, brother.
Maybe one reason could be that with the lunar calendar,
Yes.
experience fasting throughout the year
Yes.
in all seasons.
Yes. It's a huge blessing.
And
Right.
solar it would be
Yeah.
same finally.
Exactly. So we get to seek Allah's pleasure in long days and short days. Right? If you're stationary in one part of the world, you will experience over a 35, 32, 33-year period, Ramadan in every day of the year. Right? An amazing experience and a great blessing from Allah. If you want to cheat as a Muslim, what do you do in Ramadan? go to the other hemisphere, right? If it's too long for you. If you're rich and you have a private plane, you jet over to Australia and you have a short Ramadan. Okay, don't do that, please. You defeat Allah's benefit for you, right? So that's the key, right? So one way to answer the fact, this question to your child or to your own mind, why did Allah pick Ramadan? The answer is, I don't know. But why did Allah make the lunar thing for us to follow our religious observances? This may be an answer. We're not going to be arrogant and say this is the answer, but we will say this is a plausible answer. Okay, and therefore there is an ilm. Yes.
I just wanted to say, because since I grew up with the solar year, I really appreciate the lunar year, because
Yeah.
it's something that no matter where you live in the world, you don't have to have a calendar to tell you where you are. You can see it directly from the cycles of the moon itself. So I think it's quite
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, the moon fighting or moon fighting debate that Muslims continue to have in America, that's a joke, right? Moon fighting or moon sighting because they're married. There are benefits to the sighting method, obviously. We see those benefits. As Hamza Yusuf says, it grounds you and connects you to one of the signs of Allah in a very visible, monthly way. There is benefits to the calculated method also. And it's an amazing scientific recognition of as Allah tells us, that everything swims in precise circuits, right? And so we can appreciate Allah's mathematical genius, the power of His creation, right? So whether you take this answer or this answer in the fighting sighting debate, they both have benefits, right? Yes.
But if you're on the equator,
Yes.
it actually won't very much anywhere.
It won't.
in years, so therefore
It won't.
that can be challenged as well. That rationale.
Sure, it can be. But you see, Islam is not only in the equator, although you could argue the majority of Muslim societies are sort of, in a band, in a fairly wide band across the. But then you have Finnish Muslims who are going to be struggling with 23-hour fasts, right? And then you have those debates, right? I think there are Somali Muslims who have immigrated to Norway and Finland because of troubles in Somalia, whose tradition said you fast from sun up to sundown, so they've been doing 23 hours, and their fiqh and their local fiqh has to emerge to rationalize this decision, right? We all know sort of remotely that Imam Shafi'i changed his position multiple times. When he was in Iraq, he had positions on certain issues that he changed when he spent his time in Egypt, and he died in Egypt. He was buried in Egypt. So Islam is highly centered on figuring out the illah, the intent, Allah's intent. Let me ask you another question. Are you afraid of trying to probe Allah's intent regarding His commands? Does that make you uncomfortable? Or are you comfortable asking this question? What is Allah's purpose in this? Comfortable. Any discomforts? Yes.
I mean, I think there's a level of understanding that you're going to try to understand them good,
Yes.
but you may not, and
Yes.
just don't be arrogant enough to think
Yes, yes.
you've got it. Because there might be a deeper wisdom that you're really not able to see as well.
Islamic scholarship is unhinged if it's not girded by humility. Right? You have to be humble when you go into this process. And if you're humble, Allah protects you. You're arrogant, Allah will let you loose. You'll get to conclusions that are mindless. Like the conclusions some of these ISIS folks have reached. We're not scholars, we're not even trained remotely in any of the sciences, okay? But you and I have to answer for their deeds or misdeeds, right? Because they follow nothing, no vigor in scholarship. And it's such an outlier. I mean, there are bigger problems to solve than ISIS. But because of the media pressure on us as communities, we're fixated on ISIS. They're irrelevant. They really are. right? They're really irrelevant. But they become massively relevant when we have to deal with the media, when we have to deal with our communities, when we have to deal with this is quite a bad. I'll keep Okay, questions about this idea of tawqifi or illah-based reasoning, that any command we can pursue any command with humility to figure out what is an illah, what is the rational cause, effective cause for both its form and its function. And you will find with ibadat, the two other categories, ibadat and muamalat, you'll find in ibadat they're primarily, as to their function, very clear. Allah either says it, or you can use your brain to say, oh, this is to get close to Allah, it's to worship Allah, and so on and so forth. But as to its forms, it's harder. Okay, you don't know why this form is prescribed. It takes more engagement personally and with scholars to think deeply about that. When it comes to mu'amalat, there is nothing that is tawqif. Nothing. When it comes to mu'amalat, that is in dealings with each other. There's always a reasoning, either stated or very easily discernible. Let's talk about discernibility and then we'll move from this topic. Discernibility. Who discerns? Who figures out this is the ilm? If Allah tells you, then Allah states it. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. It's an ibadah. Allah prescribed fasting for you, as He prescribed fasting for those before you, so that you may increase taqwa. Right? That is the purpose of the function. The form, why is it from sun up to sundown? We can debate that. Right? We can debate that. Do we have to follow sun up to sundown? There are ulama who say if you are in the extreme latitudes, what do? Follow Mecca. Make it very simple, follow Mecca. Because the objective is to restrain yourself for a period of time. It's marked by sun up to sundown, but if sun up to sundown becomes 23 hours, and it is endangering your life, then a higher level objective kicks in and says, no, now you change it. Now if I say this to an unlearned person, you know what I'll be called? What will I be called this year? Kafir. Boom. Takfir right away. Okay, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Right? And by the way, I want to introduce you to another idea that I learned from Sheikh Dr. Abu Rifat. The term is pietistic affectations. Does anybody care to explain it? I'll define it. But any sort of immediate reactions to that phrasing? It's a very academic phrasing. Pietistic affectations. So it's to demonstrate your piety by acting it out. Piety is hahuna, right? The Prophet said, hahuna. Piety, taqwa is here. It's not in your face and in your hands and so on. But if it's settled here, if it's firm here, it will show in your behavior and your character. Right? Having a long beard, 2 fistfuls or 1 fistful, is not a mark of piety. It may be, but it is not a guarantee of piety. Lacking a beard is not a guarantee of lack of taqwa either. The sisters who are hijabis, this is not a guarantee. You're not saying your taqwa level is at 99.5. Absence of it is not saying it's at 0.5. But how many times do we absolutely make judgments about each other? Especially with hijab thing, right? It's amazing how we make judgments on the perception of the character or the taqwa of a sister based on the presence or absence of hijab. It's shocking how communities, people react in those communities. But are we sort of self-aware of this? Or am I saying something that's weird? I want to hear from you. It's not weird? But you're a man. I want to hear my sisters.
I don't think that from the gentleman's perspective, it's not weird at all. This is what we see every day. And,
Yeah,
somebody wearing a hijab, oh yeah,
yeah,
not that they'll wear around, but that, we don't know, and just perception of, it's maybe weird race or whatever, but it's not where you're coming.
yeah. Thank you. Yes,
It's inherent bias.
inherent bias. Are we aware of the inherent bias?
You are aware, and I think that's, when you look, it's perception based on, especially in Islamic world, regardless where you are, that when you look at a person, you are very judgmental based on the appearance.
If it's-
It really makes a major decision in
Yeah.
judging a person.
Yeah. Can I make it more difficult? I mean, more, not more difficult. This is an open conversation, right? Part of what I want to ask you to consider is that you deal with difficult issues with grace, with courtesy, with adab, right? If there were a hijabi sister and a non-hijabi sister running for the board of NCGP, would you have that same bias kick in, or would you restrain yourself from that bias and kick on a different bias? That's a difficult question, but it's an important question. What if the non-hijabi sister were highly qualified for a set of traits that the board needed? Whereas the hijabi sister didn't have those, but she was hijabi. The optics looked different. How would you choose?
I used to play a game with my children.
Yeah.
When the older ones were younger, they would, we would be driving
Yeah.
in Atlanta or something,
Yes.
and they'd say, oh, there's a Muslim,
Yes.
because they see
Yeah, hijabi.
outward signs.
Mm.
And I would ask them, how do you know?
Yeah.
Is it because they're wearing?
They're wearing.
And
Yeah.
I would explain to them, there are lots of people who wear scarves,
Yeah.
especially the African American community.
Yeah.
Lots of men wear dhobis.
Yeah, yeah.
Who aren't Muslim.
That's right. That's right. Or have you heard of the Philly beard?
Yes, exactly.
The cool Philly beard, it's stiff, it sticks out, and everybody does it. Right? Or the, short pants. There are non-Muslims in Philadelphia walking around with sticky Philly beards and sort of above the ankle pants, and it's a cool thing to do. Listen, the Muslim capital of the United States, it's hands down Philadelphia. Okay? I mean, you want the Muslim capital of the United States, it's in Philly. It's in Southside Philly. Right? We ruled out there. I don't live down
And I would use this to, and I would explain to them, what makes you Muslim
there. Yeah.
is not something you wear.
It's not something. But societally, it is a pronouncement and announcement. But what we can't do is reduce our dress code to be this reflection of our internal state or a statement of it, right? It could be that both match, could be that they don't match, right? And everything in between. So questions about this idea of tawqifi or mu'allal. I think I gave some examples of things that are tawqifi clearly, things that are mu'allal clearly, with the statement that our ulama say, basically all commands have an illah. Are mu'allal, it's just that Allah may have hidden the thing from you, or you haven't had a smart scholar who's figured it out, okay? And that once you've figured it out, becomes with an ilm, it becomes mu'allim. And by the way, the fact that something, command moves from tawqifi to mu'allim is a function of intellectual activity. And then post-intellectual activity, consensus of the intellects, right? And it can take time, space and time, before a consensus develops. So just because somebody came up with a rationale, doesn't mean all other scholars are going to agree with them, right? But over time, the agreement emerges. That's another thing to recognize, that agreements emerge over time in the Muslim tradition. It's not instantaneous. Why do you think the Prophet ﷺ told us that when an alim makes an ijtihad, if he gets it wrong, he gets one reward? He said it in the opposite order to what I'm saying, but I'm making a point of it. If he gets it wrong, he gets one reward. If he gets it right, he gets two rewards. The Prophet said it in the opposite way. He said, if he gets it right, he gets two rewards, but if he gets it wrong, he gets one reward. I'm saying it in the opposite direction to make a point. Why did the Prophet ﷺ tell us this? How do you understand it? You get a reward for getting it wrong? What does that mean?
A for effort.
What's that?
It's a for effort.
A for effort. No, it's beyond an effort, right? It is that is Allah's command. This is His test for us. He leaves us with the text and says, deal with it. Right? I'm not around. We don't have 800 numbers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hello, Allah, I got a question. Can you give me an answer? No. Our call is our dua, and the answer comes through a lifting of a veil. And He chooses His scholars to gift them this, but they have to beg Him, right? And they have to spend 20 years studying something before the gift is given. And we have Sheikh Google's, one search, and you want all the answers. This is deprecating our tradition. We reduce the complexity and the richness and the beauty of our tradition to a Google search. That's not Islam. It's not Islam. But we reduce it to that. And I'll end here so we can praise Allah a little bit. And then we will continue, inshallah. Okay. Is this haram? Is it haram? Absolutely not. Sheikh Mendes doesn't do haram things. But so much of our mentality is if you clap, this is haram. You have to say Allah Akbar 3 times with violence. And vengeance is good. No.
That's why I did it on purpose.
Allah, see, I told you, teachers are like this, they bait you and they,
They said, nobody clapped. I think there should be, I think if you hit it, it'll pause, and then we can start it up. Yes.
Was it in the recording?
Yeah, it'll just, instead of wasting,
Thank you very much. That's not the late time.